What if one simple act of love revealed more truth than 1,000 words? What if what looks like waste is actually worship? And what if the way you respond to something valuable says more about your heart than you realize? The setting is quiet, almost intimate. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus arrives in Bethany, a place filled with memories. This is where Lazarus lives, the man who was raised from the dead, a living testimony, a reminder that what once seemed final was not. A dinner is prepared in Jesus' honor. It's not just a meal, it's a moment. Martha is serving, as she often does, focused, active, making sure everything is in place. Lazarus is there too, sitting at the table with Jesus. Imagine that scene. A man who had been dead, now sharing a meal. Every glance at him is a reminder of what just happened. But then, something unexpected interrupts the ordinary. Mary steps forward. She's holding something small but incredibly valuable. A jar of pure nard, an expensive perfume. Not something used casually, not something brought out for everyday moments. This is rare, costly, precious. And without saying a word, she kneels. There's no announcement, no explanation, no attempt to draw attention. She simply breaks the jar and pours the perfume on Jesus' feet. The scent fills the room, not slowly, but completely. It's overwhelming, rich, impossible to ignore. And then she does something even more personal. She uses her hair to wipe his feet. In that culture, this is not just unusual, it's deeply humbling. Hair was considered a woman's glory, and here she is, using it in an act of service, of surrender, of devotion. This is not a casual gesture. This is worship, not performed, not calculated, but real. And in that moment, the entire room shifts, because when something authentic happens, it reveals what's inside everyone else. Judas speaks up, not quietly, not thoughtfully, but critically. Why wasn't this perfume sold and the money given to the poor? It was worth a year's wages. On the surface, that sounds reasonable, practical, even compassionate, but the text reveals something deeper. He didn't say this because he cared about the poor. He said it because he was a thief. He used to help himself to what was put into the money bag, and this is where the contrast becomes clear. Same moment, different hearts. Mary sees value and gives. Judas sees value and calculates. Mary responds with love. Judas responds with criticism. Mary focuses on Jesus. Judas focuses on the cost. And that difference changes everything. Because sometimes what looks like logic can hide something deeper, and what looks like waste can actually be devotion. Jesus responds, not harshly, but clearly. Leave her alone. There's protection in his voice, recognition, understanding. It was intended that she should save this perfume for the day of my burial. That statement carries weight, because it reveals something Mary may not have fully understood, but somehow sensed. This act wasn't just about the present moment. It was connected to what was coming, to his death, to what others still couldn't see clearly. Mary didn't wait for the right time. She responded when she felt it, and in doing so, she became part of something much bigger. You will always have the poor among you, Jesus continues, but you will not always have me. This is not a dismissal of the poor, it's a recognition of the moment. There are moments in life that are unique, unrepeatable, and when they come, they require a response. Mary didn't delay, she didn't calculate, she didn't hold back, she gave fully. And that's what makes it powerful. Because true devotion doesn't measure, it doesn't compare, it doesn't hold something back just in case. It recognizes value and responds accordingly. Meanwhile, the story shifts again. A large crowd hears that Jesus is in Bethany, and they come, not only because of him, but because of Lazarus, the man who was dead, now alive. He's not speaking, not performing, just existing. And that's enough, because his life is evidence, proof, a walking reminder that something extraordinary has happened, and that creates a problem, not for the people, but for the leaders. They begin to plan something else, not just against Jesus, but against Lazarus too, because on account of him, many are believing. Think about that. A man who did nothing but receive life becomes a target, not because of what he said, but because of what he represents: truth, evidence, transformation. And this is where the story becomes even more revealing, because it shows how far resistance can go. When truth threatens control, even the evidence must be removed, not examined, not understood, removed. And that's a dangerous place to be, because it means the goal is no longer truth. It's preservation of position. And that's where the contrast between Mary and Judas becomes even more powerful. Mary gives everything without concern for herself. Judas criticizes while protecting his own interest. The leaders plot to maintain control. And Jesus receives the act with understanding of what it means. 4 responses. Same moment, completely different perspectives. And that's what this story reveals. Not just an act of worship, but the condition of the heart. Because how you respond to something valuable says everything about what you value. Mary saw Jesus as worthy of everything, so she gave. Judas saw the situation as an opportunity, so he calculated. The leaders saw a threat, so they planned, and the crowd they came to see. But only some believed, and that's the pattern. It's not just about what happens, it's about how people respond to it, because the same moment can lead to devotion or criticism, to belief or resistance, to surrender or control. And that choice is always personal. Mary didn't follow a script. She didn't ask for approval. She didn't wait for others to agree. She responded to what she knew, to what she felt, to what she recognized. And sometimes that's what real faith looks like. Not loud, not public, but deeply personal. Willing to give even when others don't understand. Willing to act even when it doesn't make sense to everyone else. Willing to pour out something valuable without expecting anything in return. And that kind of faith always stands out. It fills the room, just like the fragrance. Because when something is real, it can't be hidden. And that's the invitation in this story. To look beyond the surface, to recognize what truly matters. To ask not just what makes sense, but what is meaningful. Because not everything valuable can be measured. Not everything important can be calculated. And not every act of devotion will be understood by others. But that doesn't make it less real. In fact, it might make it more. Because sometimes the most powerful moments are the ones that don't follow logic, but follow love. And maybe that's the question this story leaves us with. What are you holding back? What are you measuring that should be given? What are you protecting that could be surrendered? Because the difference between Mary and Judas wasn't knowledge. It was the heart. One gave freely, the other held tightly. And that difference echoes far beyond that room. Thank you for watching this video. If this message spoke to you, don't forget to like, follow the channel, and share it with someone who needs to hear it today.